Something I'm talking about a lot is that America and other rich countries still need to invest in industry, including manufacturing industries. But some of my friends are giving me a little bit of pushback, or sometimes a lot of pushback on this point. They're confused and they're saying, "What are you talking about? It sounds insane." So I'm making a little video here to answer all of their objections definitively. So here is objection number 1. Of course, manufacturing jobs are never going to come back to America or any rich country because workers in low-wage countries like China do these jobs for peanuts. The second objection is that even if we could get these jobs back, they would all be taken by robots. The third objection is that industry destroys the environment, and that we need fewer factories, not more factories. Fourth, people in developing countries also deserve jobs, and we should not be stealing jobs back from poor countries whose people also need to make a living. The fifth and final objection: do people really want to work in gross, noisy factories? Wouldn't they rather do something more fulfilling? Let's go through these one by one. First, high-wage countries can't compete against low-wage countries in manufacturing. This just isn't true for one simple reason. In high-wage industries like auto, steel, or semiconductors, wages are only a tiny slice of the final cost of the product. Only about $5 of the cost of your iPhone goes to labor, and only about 10% of the price of a car is labor. So wages just aren't that big of a deal when it comes to the kinds of industrial jobs we want. It's true that in some industries, wages do matter. And the huge event that just changed everything for the world economy was the rise of manufacturing in China in these low-tech industries. Chinese t-shirts, toys, and other stuff eliminated tens of millions of jobs in rich countries over the past 30 years. But many rich countries saw this as an opportunity. They knew that the rise of China and other developing nations meant billions of new customers for the high-tech, high-priced products that only they, the advanced rich countries, could make. And so they invested in new and existing high-tech industries that would thrive from the massive economic growth that the developing world, especially China, was about to power. Think about smartphones. Over the past decade, humanity has gone through a fantastic transformation, pairing a new pocket-sized supercomputer with every single one of the wealthiest few billion people on Earth, and then going and replacing it every year with a new, twice as powerful model. Smart, high-wage industrial countries like Germany, Japan, Switzerland, South Korea, and others essentially partnered with China to accomplish this. They made the expensive parts in high-wage, clean factories, and China did the low-wage, dirty final assembly. Though virtually all of the technology in smartphones was invented in the US, almost none of the parts are manufactured there. This is because America, along with the UK and several other countries, fell under the spell of a crazy economics cult that told nations to give up on intentionally developing their economies. And this will be the topic of several videos I will make in the future. All right, I think we've taken care of objection number 1. The next objection has to do with automation. Isn't it true that if America did start building factories again, that they'd be staffed entirely by robots, not people? Well, no, this is not true. And in fact, it's just silly. Automation is happening, and it's happening fast, and it's been happening for the past several hundred years. And yes, the pace of automation is right now accelerating wildly, but guess what? It's been accelerating wildly for the past several hundred years. At some point in the future, we are going to reach a moment when there really will be no more jobs at all for humans. But that moment is still 50 years away, or maybe 100, or maybe 200 years away. And even 50 years is a very long time. Just about all of you will be dead in 50 years. I'm going to make another video that does focus on the transition to a totally workerless economy and what we have to do in our lifetimes to prepare the way for that kind of world for our children and grandchildren. But for the rest of our lives, the more advanced robots get, the more jobs they will create for people if we run our economies in a smart way. And yes, I meant that. The more advanced the robots get, the more jobs people will have if we do things right. Before explaining the logic, let me just give you a real-world data point to chew on. Germany is only 1/4 the size of the US. The US used to have a much larger auto industry than Germany, but over the past 40 years, the US got rid of as many workers as it could in accordance with the economics cult that told it to give up. But Germany kept their auto industry strong and retained all of its auto industry jobs, making sure that the wages for those jobs continuously rose. How did they do it? By investing in more robots. Yes, because auto assembly isn't that high-tech of an operation, and so low-wage countries can have a bit of an edge here. But Germany has competed successfully in this area by making its workers wildly productive by surrounding them with robots. Thanks to robots, German workers make twice as many cars as American workers do. And because there are so many German auto jobs in relation to German auto workers, and because those workers are so productive, they are able to negotiate higher wages. And I want you to brace yourself because I'm about to tell you how much German auto workers make. They make $130,000 per year, more than double what US auto workers make. Now, it's true, if Germany had not increased the size of its auto industry while it brought in all those robots, then yes, it would have meant fewer jobs for humans. But the world is booming. Billions of new people are buying cars for the first time. Why would Germany keep its auto industry the same size? Germany's auto industry expanded. It aggressively reached out to fill as much of the world demand as it could. And its workers got to make high salaries thanks to robots. In other words, the more robots we have, the more and faster we can make stuff. And it will be the countries with the most robots that can contribute the most value to the world economy per worker and therefore pay the highest wages. Okay, since just now I was probably triggering a lot of my environmentalist friends by talking about making so much stuff, let's go to the next objection. Don't factories destroy the environment, and don't we need to make less, not more of them? Making stuff in itself does not destroy the environment. What destroys the environment is pollution, strip mining, oil spills, dumping toxic waste into rivers, throwing all this stuff that we make and don't need anymore into landfills and the ocean. That is what destroys the environment. And we have two options for how we as a species will deal with this. Option one is to simply shut down the world economy and go back not even to pre-industrial subsistence farming, because even that was devastating to the environment, but go all the way back to hunter-gathering. But guess what? Since the world can't support 7.5 billion hunter-gatherers, about 7.25 billion people are going to have to be eliminated somehow. So I actually don't like option one very much, and I bet you don't either. So what's option two? Okay, option two we might call the lean in option. It means investing massively into clean technology to replace all the dirty technology that the earth is currently buried under. It's going to require an insane amount of work in the high-tech industries where rich countries have so big of a contribution to make. In other words, if we get our act together on this planet politically and make a genuine effort to transform the world economy into a clean one, then this is going to mean great high-paying jobs for everyone in the rich countries and the poor countries alike. So what are we waiting for? Let's do it. And now for the next objection, which is that manufacturing jobs are unfulfilling. Really? Really, guys? Manufacturing jobs, factory jobs are unfulfilling? They're more unfulfilling than your job? All I hear you guys ever doing is complaining about your unfulfilling jobs. So what makes you think that factory jobs are going to be less fulfilling than your paper-pushing, nonprofit con jobs? I mean, really? What? Have you ever worked in a factory? No? Okay, well, I'll tell you that working in a factory, you would rather stay home and play with your kids or go to the beach than work in a factory. It's true. But if you have to go do some job for somebody else to earn a living, a factory job is really not a bad way to go if it pays a decent wage. See, your professional job offers you status that you care about, but really nobody else cares about it. A factory job that pays well beats any office job of the same salary level. In factory jobs, there is little or no office politics, and you leave every day with the knowledge that you have contributed to the world by making real things that other people will use in their everyday lives. And it's true that in the first week, the bottoms of your feet hurt from standing all day, but that's true in most service jobs as well. And sore feet are a small price to pay to avoid staff meetings. Okay, we're almost done here. We've only got one last point. Don't people in poor countries deserve jobs too? Should we really be trying to claw back jobs from them and bring these jobs back to America? Well, look, this is just really silly thinking. The world economy is not a zero-sum game. There is not a fixed number of jobs in the world to go around. In fact, if we as a species got our act together globally and started to build up our means of making a living, which a lot of countries are doing, but if all or at least most countries in the world did this, then soon there would be a good job and a decent means of making a living for every person on Earth. Jobs are not a limited natural resource. Jobs are created by creating capital, by creating machines and enterprises and new endeavors that give more people a place to make things and to provide services that other people in the world want. As I've already mentioned, when China suddenly started investing massively into its own industrial economy, and when China created hundreds of millions of new modern industrial jobs, although that did eliminate certain kinds of low-wage industrial jobs in the United States, it created millions more jobs in the rich countries because there was just so much more happening on Earth that those industrial workers and companies in the rich countries had more to do. There were more orders being placed. There was more stuff, more new stuff being put together. Unfortunately, the United States, Great Britain, and several other countries who fell under the spell of this economics cult that I have mentioned already, they threw their hands up and said, I guess we can't be a part of this global party. And it's totally bizarre that we did that, but we did. And through this process of investment and development, as long as we can do it sustainably, as I've already mentioned, everyone on Earth, including the poorest people in the poorest countries today, can have a place at the table and can make a great living and live a safe and warm and healthy life with all of the same amenities and freedoms that the most prosperous middle classes of the rich countries have today. There's plenty to go around because our wealth is no longer based or no longer has to be based on finite resources. Our wealth, when it's done properly and sustainably, is now a process of producing wealth and comfort and health with technology using renewable resources. So, okay, I hope I've made myself a little bit clear in this video. I hope I have addressed the objections that many people have been raising with me, and I hope that this makes some sense, because if we can get our heads around these basic ideas, we really can work together to make an incredible world.